This is cooking in Ciudad de Mexico.
Thank you.
I would say that this is going to be difficult to eat with a fork and knife, so it would be a lift, but also don't eat that.
Yeah. No, tostada eating is challenge.
So,
Okay, master it.
My pleasure. Is everyone good?
Yes. Thank you.
So fun. This is so fun.
Shall we say grace? Okay, so as a first topic of conversation, very much on theme as we are here together, we're a lot of us meeting each other for the first time over this meal. Food traditionally forever has been a tool for gathering, right? Like obviously we're nourishing ourselves, we're eating, but just like today, it is also a community building act. So the first question is, I get this right, so we're like kind of phrased it. Okay, and whatever comes up, like if it's like a little bit off topic or like somewhat resembles the question, that's fine. This is really a prompt, like a little a suggestion. So what was your experience around food and community growing up?
Start.
I don't know.
Should we take a bite first?
Yeah, I'm taking a bite first.
That's a good question, yeah. This is not.
Oh, and I can taste the smokiness from smoked peas.
Oh yeah, they're corn husk smoked.
Oh, what, sorry?
Corn husk smoked beef.
Yeah.
Wow, Morgan, I'm obsessed. Love that.
Wow. Oh my god.
Sounds so good. Delicious, Lucy.
Yeah.
Wow. The keeper. Everything.
Well, I can start. So, a few things come to mind. I'm from a Jewish family, and religiously speaking, like we're not very traditional, but culturally speaking, there was a few holidays throughout the year, maybe like 2 or 3, that were very important.
What were they?
Like the New Year, Rosh Hashanah, Passover, typical ones. And those are the moments where I saw some family members, like, for the only time of the year. Every Friday, even though we were not religious at all, because I grew up in a Jewish family, we would gather at my grandmother's house for a Friday night dinner. And like no matter where we were at, like my grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, like we would always eat together, and I know that that tradition is what kept us close, and like that's why I have such a close relationship to my family. And so I think like the idea of gathering and building community, because family is like the first community, I think that started there. And now that I live abroad, that's also like my default. That's kind of how I build community, and I've now revolved my whole life around making dinners for people to build that sense of family. And yeah, it's something like very central to me and really important. Yeah.
My experience with food growing up was one related. I mean, my biggest food memories from when I was a kid are related to gardening and being in the soil as a kid. I grew up on a ranch outside of Calgary, and we grew a lot of our own food, what we could. And so, I have memories of running around the yard and playing, and then wanting a snack and just pulling carrots out of the ground and having that as my snack. One of my chores was to hill the potatoes up so that like they would grow more under the ground, and having those flavors as a kid that I took for granted, or they were just part of how we ate. Now I'm kind of, as an adult, searching for that quality of food in my own food every day. So I feel really fortunate that I'm able to understand what good food tastes like, what food that's really grown and nurtured tastes like, and I know the difference between that and, something else. And so, I guess in terms of community, I have that lineage of my family of gardeners. Because my grandma still gardens. She's 88. She just turned 88 a few weeks ago, and she's still in the garden. And so when I garden, when I grow things, and when I cook, that's part of my community kind of coming through me. But I also wanted to mention, and I didn't mention it earlier, coming from a restaurant background and cooking in a restaurant kitchen, that's a very different kind of community that like restaurateurs understand. And when you work in a restaurant, it's its own kind of family. So kind of coming up and doing my stage that I did and working with really high level and amazing cooks, but also seeing them every single day and having those people be your closest friends and your family in another way is another way that food and community kind of come together for me. So I think it's definitely like food and community are always tied together. Maybe lack of community sometimes when you're eating by yourself, and like we were talking about like eating ramen noodles when you're in college and that kind of thing. But yeah, that's my story around food and community, is the comparison between the home cooking and the contrast between cooking in a restaurant and having that family as well. So there's all different levels of family, right? So, yeah.
My mom, I had like family friends that owned a farm, and my mom would take me there as often as possible. And I also remember pulling carrots out of the ground, like, oh, that's a carrot. Wow. It's not the same thing. No.
It's not in a bag and it's not
No.
perfectly round.
No. No. It looks real.
There's really privilege in like having the chance to go to a place where you can actually see your food. Like really, really many people who don't have that.
No, people don't know.
It's interesting because in certain contexts it is privilege, and then in certain contexts it's just subsistence, right?
Yeah.
Right.
From my perspective. I grew up in the city. My mom was working mom as well, and I was like growing up. I was fed and by like a cook that cooked for us and put a lot of things in the fridge and we cooked. But when my mom was cooking, we knew, like my brothers and I, like we actually tasted the flavor of my mom's cooking. It was like a very different experience. And so like looking back, I think I'm very grateful to have the opportunity, like not only for my mom's cooking, but also like having the opportunity to go away from the city. I was a city girl and I was able to go away to the ranch and experience the whole nature around the food, and also the rural like Mexican like culture around food, which I don't think I'll be able to cook myself. Like we used to go away with my grandma as well, and my grandma loved markets. Like she really liked going to markets and buying when we were living in the city, we did not go to the markets. Like where I grew up, we ordered food or someone else went to the market, to the supermarket. But when we were in the rural area, we went to the markets with my grandma, and I'm always gonna remember her like teaching me around all of it around the markets, not supermarkets. And Although I had another, like a whole different experience around the food when I was away from the city, and I was like eating cultural things different. I'm sure I'm never gonna cook a michote, which is lamb, because it's very difficult and I don't even eat meat anymore. But it was a very different experience to eat away from the city and to eat, I don't know, like cultural market food, and also like around the community. Weirdly, like a part of my family gathers. You're always gonna find food every Monday at my great grandma's house.
Oh, your great
She's not
grandma's
even
alive.
She's not, no. She's not even alive.
Oh,
But the cooks from when I was a kid are still working there. Every Monday, you'll find food there, and not everyone goes. Like there's like 30, 40 family members that you can always go, and you'll see family. You wanna see family. You wanna eat something. You'll go there every Monday.
Why Mondays?
I don't know. It was always
That's
like
just a
that.
tradition.
Mondays, the great grandmas.
Wow.
What about you, Elsa?
You're going up because I'm going to have the last bite.
This is really good. Thank you.
Oh, good.
I grew up in Cabo San Lucas, and in Cabo San Lucas we have people from all over Mexico City and international people. So we try a lot of people, sometimes more people, a lot of food and Thai food. And my mom is a really good chef. You know, it's
Yeah.
amazing. She always cooking. She's the best. She cooking on Christmas, New Year, Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, Mexico Day, always. And I love it. She always cook for all the family, all my friends, for everything, and I love it. So if you have the opportunity to go to the Scouts, you have to try all the food there. The local food, for example, if you are in Cabo San Lucas, you can try Ciudad de Mexico food there, Veracruz food, Chiapas, or wherever you want.
Really?
In Cabo San Lucas, because we have a lot of people there, so they have their testing
Their flavors.
their flavors from their city. And they cook there, so you can try all the food and tasting.
And not to mention really good Japanese food.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
It's a great place to eat there.
So, my experience of food and community growing up actually is a bit different of what some people would expect. You think, I'm a chef. You must have grown up in this amazing family, everybody cooking together, and everybody's amazing and cooking, all this memory of this Italian family. But actually, my mom was a working mother, and she didn't really like to cook, and she wasn't really great at it, but she always fed us, and it was really tasty. But I remember experiencing a lot of the food accidents in the kitchen, some things get burned, the souffle, and then cakes wouldn't turn out the way they were supposed to turn out. But I also remember that I grew up in a family of foodies. I mean, they really like to enjoy food, so we would take the Sunday as a way for, my mom didn't really want to cook on Sunday, so we would go to restaurants and enjoy different kind of local restaurants. I come from a small village, so I think
Village.
it's a small town in Italy on the East Coast, so we would have seafood or other things, and it would be always local farm to table, so don't think fancy restaurants, but at least I had this experience growing up of enjoying food a real gluttonous way, and I actually didn't learn how to cook until very late, until I was 21. I learned to cook at university because, you know, I don't know, just cooking wasn't really part of our culture. It was more like the part of enjoying food as a luxury. But on the other hand, I remember spending a lot of time with my granny, and I would go over to her house and watch her cooking homemade pasta, and she would cook me all these dishes, and the greatest food memories of her preparing this very traditional Southern Italian snack, which is basically a piece of bread toasted. She would toast it on the fire. And then every summer she had a kitchen garden, and she would basically harvest all the tomatoes and make passata, which is tomato sauce that you make in big bottles and you store, so you have tomatoes for the winter when tomato is not in season. And she would take this sauce and warm it up and spread it on the bread. Wow. And that is the best food memory I've ever had. Wow. And still, like, it's like my snack. It's like, you know, bread with tomato and olive oil and salt. It's just delicious. Yeah, it's kind of my story around the community.
Yeah. I think it's my turn.
Go, Elsa.
Okay, so what I thought was that we Mexicans were very funny to eating. That's what I thought. But now listening to these stories, I come to know that perhaps it has a different story for every family. So what I can say from my part of this big puzzle that we call life is that I've been very lucky to have a family that all of our best memories are somehow linked to food.
That's why I'm very into getting to know lots of different dishes and enjoying to eat a lot. Everyone who knows me well knows that I'm kind of always hungry and wanting to eat. So it's also very important for me as a city girl to admit that whenever I'm out from here, I love to find how do the trees look like and what kind of products they give us. So there I've been finding a connection with nature, but also with people. And I really believe that that's how we all connect, humankind connect through food, and how we nourish ourselves and others by being in contact with all this.
Thank you for sharing this beautiful meal with me, Morgan. It's delicious. And I'm so happy to be part of this project with you guys. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, it's my turn. Yeah, true. Well, I actually found out that my mom made all my baby food by hand the other day. So my mom is extremely passionate about cooking, and she's just incredible. Like she loves international food as well. So like she learned how to make pho, like from scratch. Like I go traveling and I'll bring back things. I'll be like, can you make this for me? And she's like, sometimes no. Sometimes she'll be like, no, Sally, I don't know what to do with this. Like I went to Sri Lanka and I was like, I need hoppers. Please make the hoppers. She was like, you can go get the hoppers. And you can make it yourself, but then there's other things where she's more taken to and she'll make them. And like she uses it as like a creative outlet. She's extremely creative. She like knits, she does all these like handmade things, and food is, I guess, her main outlet because it's an essential thing that we have to, we have to eat. So yeah, my experience around food and community, like not so much growing up because I came from a very small nuclear family, but a really large extended family. So every time we were together with our families, like it's every Sunday dinner, there's a Sunday dinner, like similar to Mira, like it's Friday night, us it's Sunday. And when I lived in London with my aunt, like every Sunday morning she would wake me up and tell me what was on the menu, and I had to start you know, chopping the vegetables at like 9 a.m. on a Sunday, which is not what I wanted to do with my Sundays ever. But I had to do it, and that's, we would have like sometimes like, anybody is invited. Like our homes, like in my family, it's like an open door policy, which gets a bit overwhelming at some points because you're like, okay, who's coming through the door next? Who do I have to do an airport run to go collect? Like, but at the same, on the other side of things, it's really beautiful because you have a lot of very eccentric experiences with all these very eccentric people that come through the door. We never ate out at restaurants. Like if I ate out at a restaurant, it was my grandfather taking me to a buffet. Like once, maybe every 6 months. It wasn't like common for me. So I think that's why now that I'm like older, I indulge a little bit more in restaurants, but still it's not really what I am taken by. I like really enjoy going home and eating my mom's food. And so when I went abroad, my experience with food and community was more so with my peers because we came from all different places in the world and we were living in the Netherlands. I think it was this girl Tatiana from Russia who like started this tradition of every week we would assemble together and someone would cook food from their, like where they came from, but also do like a PowerPoint presentation to introduce their culture to everyone else. And that was extremely, valuable, even though at first I was like, this is so nerdy. Like, what are we doing? But then I was like, yo, this is fun. And we would like, someone would send the ingredients list, we would cycle off to the grocery store, and then we would all like divide everything. And it was just a nice way to get to know my peers, but also get to know where they came from. And I guess that's what we're doing here. But like, coming from a Caribbean family, seasoning is extremely important as well, which is why, I don't know. I'm not, sometimes when I go out to eat at a restaurant, I'm not necessarily always blown away. Because my mom is extremely obsessed with food and cooking and seasoning, and my family as well. So,
Maybe one of the decisions of opening a restaurant, because when I had the idea of opening a restaurant, I really wanted to open like community. Like it's a mushroom restaurant, and as I experienced mushrooms myself, it was around community. Like there's forays and everything's like really people into mushrooms. We're a very weird kind. But no, it's like very community. So I did not, like, I wanted to do something mushroomy, but I did not know what. But I always thought of a physical place, and as I experienced, like, many people in Mexico don't know much about mushrooms, the most accessible way to present mushrooms to their lives is through food, and through it, like, food will open everyone's hearts, I guess.
That's nice. My mom always cooking, for example, in Christmas, New Year, my birthday, my cousin's birthday, my dad's birthday, Mom, Mother's Day, Father's Day, even Mother's Day, Mexican Day, 20th of November, day of the Dead. One more Halloween. One more
Christmas.
Christmas.
New Year's Eve.
Always he made the food.
Yeah, New Year's Eve they had
Yeah.
lasagna together.
On the right, every
Really?
Sunday.
Oh, yeah,
Every
yeah.
Sunday he makes food.
Oh my god.
So we love her food. And it's so funny.
And I'm like you, Anna. Like, because my mom loves to cook so much, I never, it's not like I'm work. Everybody loves to cook, like I'm surrounded by people who love to cook, so it's not something that I necessarily
But this year is one of my
your goals.
years.
Not mine. My goal is for you to cook.
So I wanted to
2025.
So I wanted to
point out an observation from listening to everyone. I'm taking notes. I just find these conversations like so interesting. And a common thing for many of us is that like women for so long have held the tradition of flavor in a family, which by extension is the tradition of cooking and eating flavor in a culture, right? Because like many families create culture. And as women, I mean, I think we're all living very modern and very inspiring lives. Like we're all creating our own paths. We're all doing something that we believe in, that we're passionate about. You know, we're like shaping and designing the way that we live our lives. We come from this line of women who probably didn't have the same opportunities as us, but like where they really made their mark was in eating and cooking, and like your great grandmother who's not even alive carries on that tradition of like feeding. And yeah, and not that we're not going to dive into this, but just like a little seed of a question that I'd love to just give to you as a gift is like, how are we going to make that mark with food? You know, like as women, there's no obligation for us to eat. But that's what's amazing, is there's no obligation. People will be fed. We don't have to cook for the family anymore. Like that's culturally, I mean, there definitely, that still exists. But like we can also decide what role we play in that way of how we feed, how we gather, how we nurture, and that can be different. And I think that's cool that we get to decide what that is.
Yep.
That's beautiful.